sales tax rates that are applied to transactions here in Colorado?
Well, like I was saying before we went on break, that could vary from transaction to transaction. So, depending on where those transactions take place, in other words, just as a refresher, depending on the common taxing jurisdictions and who you're collecting for, that rate could be, as small as 2.9%, which is just the state sales tax rate, or it could be as high as, adding up all of the jurisdictions that are applicable to, that business location, which, like I gave in the example earlier, if you were in the city and county of Denver, you would be applying that 7.72%. And, one other main issue that we have is that folks need to know who to remit those taxes to once they collect them. And that can get really complex because of the fact that most business owners who are just starting up shop, so to speak, don't have any idea once they collect the taxes who to remit them to, and they just remit everything to us, at the Department of Revenue. Mm-hmm. And that's where a lot of businesses get into some trouble because, although we do collect for many jurisdictions and all counties with the exception of Denver and Broomfield, the jurisdictions that we don't collect for would still get their money if somebody accidentally sent the money to us, not knowing any better, that they were in a home rule city who collects their own taxes. But what they need to realize is that, as you had asked earlier, not only would they, if they're in a home rule city, need to get that sales tax license to remit their state and state collected sales taxes, but they're also going to be subject to getting another sales tax license if they happen to be located in a home rule city such as Denver. And most new businesses here in Colorado are those businesses that I have no idea whether or not they're in a home rule city. And one of the publications that we have on our website under that forms link that I talked about earlier is we have a form that we call a DR 1002. And that is a publication, it's a 6-page publication that has all of the rates for all jurisdictions, not only the state and state collected jurisdictions, but we also have a couple of pages devoted to the home rule cities. And they have their current applicable sales tax rates and their contact information on that publication. Okay, so if, for a business that isn't sure if they're in a home rule city or not, they can download that form and find out for sure and then contact the appropriate person in that jurisdiction. Yes, that's correct. All right, excellent. Well, you did bring up a point or an example the last time with the last question on what are the sales tax rates that are applied. And one of the examples that you mentioned is if a person has a storefront in Denver, the city and county of Denver, and somebody purchases, say somebody from Aspen happens to be in Denver and they purchase something at their storefront, they would pay the 7.72% sales tax. If they went back and ordered it online, then they would only pay the 2.9% for Colorado? Right. However, that's a little misleading too, because a lot of times what winds up happening is that business owners who become sales and use tax savvy wind up thinking that they're going to save money in sales tax by having something delivered. And although in some cases that might be true, in many cases that is not true because we have use tax. And so in that case, or in that scenario that we just gave, surrounding that purchase from somebody who happens to reside in Aspen, what winds up happening is, let's say that delivery took place and that seller collected the 2.9%, but if Aspen has a use tax liability, that purchaser is going to wind up paying use tax to the city of Aspen. Okay, all right. Now does that only, if the person doesn't have a storefront, say their P.O. boxes in the city and county of Denver, would that still apply, or would they, somebody purchasing from their internet site, would they still only have to collect the 2.9% sales tax, or is there another rule that works
works its way in.
Yes, and that's funny that you should ask that, Bea. I was just asked that same question in a class that I conducted yesterday, and businesses think that if they have a P.O. box and they don't use a physical address, that they don't need to register a business location. And that is incorrect. If they are a business owner, and I'm going to use the example of somebody being a small home-based business, they've got to use that home address as their business address and register that location.